Hi everyone and welcome to our second live stream of the day. This afternoon we're going to be talking about French 1 and French 2, both of our French titles. I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit about what's in the title. We're going to look at the scope and sequence and touch on a couple of the extra features of Voces as well. I'm going to give a couple more minutes for a few more people to join us and we'll get started in just a couple minutes there. Okay, so again, we're going to start in just a minute or two. I just want to give everybody a little bit of time to join us. Make sure everybody remembered that it was a double feature day and that our live stream was at 2 o'clock today. So we'll just kind of give everybody just a few more minutes. If you guys could just bear with me for a couple minutes, we'll get started real soon here. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with our French 1 and French 2 live stream. As always, you can ask questions in the chat. You can also feel free to schedule a personalized walkthrough if you want to go over any of what you see in more depth, or if you just have some questions and want to get those answered on a one-to-one basis. You can do that from our website. There's also a link in the description to schedule that walkthrough. So please feel free to do that as well. If we miss any of your questions, feel free to give us a call, send us an email, or again, schedule that personalized session with us, and we'd be happy to go over anything that comes up. So we're going to dive right into French 1. That's where we're going to start today. So our French titles are structured a little bit differently than our Spanish titles, if you're familiar with our Spanish at all. We do have several chapters, so we have the main chapters, and then within those chapters, we're going to have subchapters as well. So for each chapter, you're going to have a cover page. That cover page is just a cover. And then you're going to have a scope and objective for each chapter as well. So this is going to give your students and you as a teacher just a little bit of an overview of what you're going to hope to learn in that chapter. So it'll have the types of vocabulary that you'll learn, the different culture pieces that will be in that chapter, the grammar concepts that'll be in that chapter, as well as the phonetic lessons that are in that chapter. So it's a really good kind of overview or to use as that kind of expectation setting at the beginning of a chapter. And then you'll see that the chapter, like I said, is broken into subchapters here. Each subchapter is going to tell you what lesson or what concept is included in that section. So we're going to go right into chapter 1.1. Chapter 1 is going to be that basic introduction to the language. So you're going to be talking about greetings, and then you're going to be talking a little bit about register. So there's a little bit again, that basic introduction there. So Chapter 1, Section 1 is going to start out with a video. And in this video, you're going to hear people from different Francophone countries using greetings. And those greetings are going to be things that the students might not know yet, but we're kind of introducing them to the language right off the bat. And then you'll see there's some questions here that kind of just ask them what they, comparing it to English, what words or expressions do you use to greet people? What do you think greetings are? So we're kind of just giving that first impression of the language. And then all of the pages that are labeled with the V1 or V and then a number, those are going to be your vocabulary pages. So when we go into this first lesson page, this first vocabulary page, you'll see that we have the vocabulary for greetings, we have some supplementary vocabulary, and we have some vocabulary for titles. Now each of these are going to have native speaker audio that go along with them. So we'll click on one. And you should be able to hear that, the bonjour. So each one of those is going to have that audio along with it. There's a really good mix here of male, female, different accents, different types of speakers. So there's a really good mix there. And then as you scroll down through the lesson, you'll also get to the phonetic lessons. So this is where we're really talking about the pronunciation and how we use this language a little bit differently than we might use our first language. Again, there's going to be that native speaker audio. So we've got these ones that are the cognates, but really showing that difference in the pronunciation. We also have culture built right into the lesson pages, so this will be a little note about the culture of greetings and the different ways that, that people might greet each other. And then we do have the practice here as well. So the practice where you're pairing up with a classmate and you're practicing the speaking portion. You'll also notice this icon throughout the title, and this is our can-do statement icon. When you click on that, it'll take you directly to that can-do checklist where you'll be able to have your students mark how comfortable they feel with that statement. And then as a teacher, you'll actually be able to see their answers, and they'll be able to, and you'll be able to kind of check their progress and check what they might need help with. So we'll go back into the lesson page. And we're going to scroll back down here to where we were. So we've got, again, some speaking practice for different times of the day, different scenarios. So each lesson is going to have those speaking practice portions of it as well. So then, again, in this section, we go back to that original video that we watched, except now we're going to be actually answering questions about those greetings now that we've learned the vocabulary and we can look at those greetings and know what they're saying in the video. So after your vocabulary or lesson pages, you'll then have the practice pages. So these are your different activities. We have speaking, writing, listening, and reading activities. Again, anywhere you see this icon, that's an activity that has a can-do statement associated with it. It's a little square with a person's head inside of it. Anywhere you see this lightning bolt inside of a circle, that means that that activity is automatically graded. So if we go into that activity, we would be able to, and you can see that I just kind of put some random answers in that one, but you can see that the students will get automatic feedback. So as soon as they hit the submit button at the bottom of the page, they'll actually get to see immediately if their answers are correct or incorrect. And correct is a green check mark, incorrect is just the red X. Now you'll also notice that on any page that has questions or activities on it, your answer key icon will show up. So you'll be able to click there and view that answer key for the page. Of course, the students won't be able to see that with their login, but the teacher will be able to see an answer key for any of the pages that have activities on them. Now, something that's worth noting is that answers are not case sensitive. However, they are sensitive to punctuation. So when you're looking at activities that have to do with numbers in particular, or anything that would have a dash between it, or a period or a comma, if they don't put that punctuation in correctly, it will mark that answer as incorrect. But as a teacher, you can always go into your grading portal and you can mark that as correct as well. So then after the practice, we do have some presentations, and these could be done before the practice or after the practice. So for example, this is a video with a French speaker, and we'll play just a small portion of that just so you guys can see what that looks and sounds like. So you can kind of hear that the video is going to be at a speaking speed. You are able to slow the video down by simply clicking right here underneath where it says want to slow this video down. And you can do it at slow speed or extra slow speed, so you can slow it down if the students are having difficulty understanding. So then we go into the next page, which is the culture section. So any page that has the C and a number, that's a culture page. So this is where we're really learning about the some of the differences in Francophone countries and learning about the culture aspect that will help them meet those actual world readiness standards of culture as well. So these are all going to be kind of up to the teacher, how many culture points or how many culture notes you go over or you assign. You could use all of them or you could use just a few of them. So then you'll see in Chapter 1, Section 1, we've got another vocabulary page, another lesson page, where now we're talking about names, asking, how people are. Again, we're going to have the images, we're going to have that phonetic section where we're learning about the differences in pronunciation. So, the difference in how we pronounce C when it's before vowels, or, before these particular vowels. So again, just really looking at that pronunciation and how the language is different than our first language might be. We also will have grammar notes on some of the lesson pages. So when we're learning those different grammar points, because this is a grammar-based instruction method, we're going to have grammar throughout in each lesson. Again, some conversational practice, and again, some can-do statements. So you can also hover over the can-do icon, which will show you which can-do statement this particular practice is helping them prepare for. So that way when you go to the checklist, you'll know which statement you're marking for. So then we do have culture notes that some will have their own page. So you'll be able to see the different culture notes. This one in particular is about cafe courtesy and how the Francophone countries treat some of the culture in their own countries. So they're going to be about different countries and different areas in each one. But again, these are things that could be optional, but do align with those ACTFL standards. So then again, with each lesson, you're going to have that practice. So again, we've got speaking, writing, listening, and reading. The speaking activities will allow the students to actually record themselves. Any device that has an active microphone will work for this. So if they have a Chromebook, a tablet, even a smartphone, they'll be able to record themselves speaking. Now, by default, these activities allow the students to record as many times as they need to, and then sends the most recent one to the teacher. So they can try it, listen to themselves and how they did, and then keep recording until they feel like they've recorded a version that is good enough to be graded. So they simply hit record. It will tell them that the recording is in progress. Then they hit stop, and they'll be able to listen to it and record again if they would like to. So then again, we've got some practice there. We've got another culture section, and that's all within this section, Chapter 1, Section 1. So then in each section, we're going to have some extra materials here as well. So the first thing we'll have are the panoramas. The panoramas are really cool because they kind of give you an opportunity to almost treat it like a virtual field trip. So these are images that are 360 degrees. you can move around in the image and you can kind of explore that place where we're looking at. So in this one, this is one of the longest pedestrian streets in Europe. So we're kind of looking around this street. We're looking at signs. And then we have some questions here that are going to relate to the greetings, and then talking about the street signs, things like that. So really allowing them to immerse themselves in that place and see what it would be like to use that language and use what they've learned so far if they were actually in this place. So it's a really fun thing to either use as an assignment or as a group activity where maybe you present this on a smartboard and have the students talk about it rather than writing about it. There's a lot that you can do with these images, and it can be really fun for the students as well. So our next section is going to be the authentic documents. So we'll have things here that are written by, either written by or created by native speakers for native speakers. So for example, this is a commercial for a credit card, and it's in French. It's something you would see if you were in a French-speaking country. And then again, we have here, this is a French website, so the students can look at this image, and then it's going to ask them some questions about it. So what type of website, what country? So we're really looking at these things that they would experience if they were in a French-speaking country, and how they would interpret them, if they would be able to read these things and then answer questions about them. And then the next section that we have is going to be the interview videos. So these are videos where we are interviewing a French-speaking person. Again, they're going to be in that very conversational speed, so you can always slow the video down as well. But these are, again, just kind of to get students used to hearing the language spoken and hearing it spoken in a way that's very natural, that they would experience in the world. And then just asking those questions for comprehension as well. The next section we have are going to be the presentational speaking. So these would be where, again, they're going to be recording activities because they're speaking activities, and they're going to be kind of exposed to different scenarios. They're going to be given some context, an introduction, and then given exactly what's expected of them on the recording. So they're going to be able to actually listen to what their friend Kareem is saying and then record their response to it. And as we go through, we see that that's true for all of the speaking activities. So we're asking them, in this chapter, in this section, we're asking them to, use the different types of greetings, use the different, times of days that we've looked at, and really use what we've learned so far in a very conversational or presentational way. So then we do come to the can-do checklist. So this is the checklist that, again, that image of the square with the head inside of it, that's going to be the indication that an activity lines up with this can-do checklist. So they'd be able to go in here, and again, like I had shown earlier, they're going to be able to mark their comfortability, and they'll be able to actually click on this arrow here to go back to that particular activity, where they'll be able to kind of go back over and make sure that they do feel comfortable with that particular statement. So then as we go down, we then have the kind of the little quizzes. So these can be used as an assessment after the end of that section. So this would be, a section quiz. It's going to be in each subsection, so there'll be one in chapter 1.2 as well. And it will just quiz them on just what's in that subchapter. So they can kind of get that assessment and see, if you guys are ready to move on to that next subchapter. And then after the quiz, you're going to have the work summary page. This gives the students a really nice little snapshot of what they have completed in the chapter and what their scores are. So they'll be able to see this. You as a teacher, you'd be able to print this out. You'll also be able to see it in your grading portal as well. And then there is a vocabulary list available just to the teacher for the entire subchapter So you'll be able to print that out and hand it out if you'd like. The students will be able to access it if you assign it to them. And you'll notice that this little apple is next to certain things in the table of contents. And what that indicates is that that's available only to the teacher until it's assigned or unhidden. We're going to take a look at how to hide and unhide things in just a few minutes here as well. So that's the basic makeup of a subchapter within each chapter. Now you'll notice as we move through, there becomes a little bit, more information in each section. So we still have the vocabulary and the culture, we have the practice, but then we do also, as we go through, the phonetics are sometimes going to be separated out. And you can tell what's on the page based on that first letter. So again, the V is for the vocabulary or the lessons, the P is for the phonetics, and the C is for the culture. And then if we go into this one, we'll notice that the G is for the grammar. So you'll be able to see what each page contains based on those initials that are on the table of contents. So then once you've completed all of the subchapters within a chapter, you'll be able to do a chapter review. So we do have flashcards for each section. And then we do have the presentation, which is for the entirety of the chapter. So you'll be able to go through this. And it's just kind of a class review that you could present to the students or have them go through on their own. So after we've done all of the subchapters, we've done the review, that brings us to our exam. And our French titles do have two versions of assessments at the end of each chapter. We have the Integrated Performance Assessment, or the IPA, and we have the more traditional exam as well. So the IPA is going to be a little bit different than your traditional or standard assessment. At the beginning, the students will get a context and some guiding questions. So the context is going to tell them the scenario for their assessment. So for Chapter 1, they're beginning their study abroad program, and they need to be able to give basic personal information in French. So giving an introduction, giving contact information, registering at a school, and information about a job. So the students know that this is what these activities are going to be in regard to. So they're going to be asked questions, they're going to be asked to complete tasks that have to do with these types of this type of information. So then we give them some guiding questions to get them thinking about it, to really give them time to kind of prepare for what they will need to be able to do to complete this assessment. So then we move into the assessment areas. So there's always going to be interpretive and communicative tasks in an IPA. So the first task is the interpretive reading. So they've been given a CV or a resume, and then they're going to be asked some questions about it. So what type of document it is, and then looking at that keyword recognition. So guessing the meanings of words, from cognates, guessing meaning from context, and then giving those supporting details that they're able to find because they've understood those essential concepts. So you can see that the IPA really tests more than just the vocabulary that they've learned in the chapter. It does kind of test their ability to understand the essence of the language and understand, the information that's being presented to them. The interpretive listening is going to be very similar, except it's going to be done with audio. This one is audio and a little bit of reading as well. But again, they're just going to be answering some questions that may not necessarily have to do with just the vocabulary or the grammar that they've learned, but how well they can actually understand what's being said and how well they can understand the language itself. And then interpersonal speaking is going to be a recording activity. So again, they're getting some context, they're understanding what's expected of them, and then they're going to be listening and then recording their response. And then there's going to be usually a writing section as well. It'll be presentational. So they're actually now writing out the language. And you'll notice anywhere where they type in the title, If they click into the text box, they will have the ability to actually use the accent keyboard. So they won't have to know the different shortcuts, or they won't have to know where to find the accents. They're right here. Very easy to access. And we end the IPA with a can-do self-assessment, where again, they'll be able to click here to go back to the particular activity. And on the IPAs, they're actually able to click within the can-do box and mark without leaving the activity. So they can click right there on the particular can-do statement, mark how well they feel about it, and then it'll be there on that self-assessment at the end of the IPA. So outside of the IPA, we do still offer the more traditional exam. There's going to be a multiple choice section where they'll be answering vocabulary and grammar-based questions. And then there will be some speaking and or writing activities as well with that exam. So you'll still be able to do both. You'll still be able to get that full assessment. And we definitely recommend using either one or both of the types of exams, or kind of mixing them together, maybe doing the multiple choice and a couple of pieces of the IPA. Really up to the teacher on how they want to assess and what they're looking for from their students. So again, you'll see there was a speaking and then a writing as well. And so that really is the basic makeup of an exam, or I'm sorry, of a chapter. So again, we've got the whole chapter. We then have the sub-chapters, and the sub-chapters will include the vocabulary, phonetic, culture, and grammar pieces. And you'll be able to tell what's on that page just based on the title of it. It'll have the letter and then the number, which just indicates how, V1 is vocabulary 1, P1 is phonetic 1. So you'll be able to see what's on those pages before you navigate to them or before you assign them. So we do also, with our French 1 title, have a reader. It's down here at the bottom. You can assign it a couple of pages at a time. You could assign, 4 to 6 pages at a time, or you could leave that kind of up to the students or do it as a class. But it is here, and then there are activities that go along with it that will just kind of test that comprehension of the reader. So you heard me mention earlier that anything marked with this apple is hidden from the students, and there is a way to hide or unhide these activities. So what you do is you go here into your teacher's panel, and the teacher's panel is going to have all of your kind of teacher tasks, except for assigning an assignment, which we'll look at in just a second as well. So to hide or unhide activities, you simply go into the teacher's panel, you click here on this pencil, which is the Voces Editor, and then once it loads, you'll see your table of contents laid out here. So if I wanted to hide the entire second chapter from my students so they didn't work ahead, I would just click on the name of that chapter, and then this button that says Students See, I would click there, which makes it teacher only and adds that apple to it. Now if I wanted to unhide something, so let's say I was ready for them to see the exam, I would simply go into the exam, and the same thing, I'm going to just click that teacher only button, which changes it to Students See, and now the students will be able to access that exam. Then I click Save up here, and when I go back into the title, I'll see that that apple is now next to Chapter 2, but it is not next to, or I'm sorry, I did change it back to teacher only, but if I had not changed it back, then the apple would not be there next to my exam. The other way that you can unhide an activity from a student is by assigning it. So the assignment button is this star right here. You click on that star, it's going to open up a calendar that has all of your class's assignments on it. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the assignment tool, but you can check out our previous live stream on our YouTube channel that was fully focused on the new assignment tool. It'll walk you through everything step by step. But I'm just going to kind of quickly show you how to assign an activity. So if I wanted to create a new assignment for one of my classes, I simply click Create a New Assignment. I'm going to assign the current page that I'm on. I'm going to choose a deadline. And then I'm going to choose some additional options. Again, the previous live stream we had about the assignment tool really goes in depth with each of these, but I can give a submission limit. I can prevent the students from leaving the page. I can apply a timer, or I can require 100%. And then I can choose which classes or which students to assign this to. So I can assign it to an entire class at once, or I can choose specific students from a class and assign that to them. I can then leave a note here if I wanted to about the assignment, and then I just hit Create Assignment, and now they'll be able to see that activity. All right, so the other thing with our French program, you can add your own activities. So again, we're going to go into that teachers panel, and we'll go here into the Voces Editor. And in this Voces Editor, I can actually add, if I have, a specific activity that I know really works, I've been using it for years and I want to use that with the Voces curriculum. I would simply navigate to where I want to add the page. So I want to add it to Chapter 1, Section 1. I create a new group here, and I'm just going to give it a name. And then inside of that group, I just click Add a Page. I can create a new page, or I can use any of the pages that are in this drop down as kind of a guide or as a structure. I'm going to go with just a new page, and I'm going to give it a name again, and I'm going to choose if I want it to be a standard activity or a recording activity. I can change if I want it to be points or a rubric, and then I create that page. So now what I have to do is create a section, and I create that section and then choose what type of content I'm going to have in that section. Now, again, we're going to just kind of go through this a little bit quickly because we did have a previous live stream about the editor as well, so you could check that out and check out the section on adding activities there as well. But you can see that there's a really good selection of different types of sections you can create. So you could create your own vocabulary list. You could create your own matching activity or multiple choice activity. You could create your own content section, which would just be, if you had content that you wanted to add as far as a culture note or, a particular skill or something that you just kind of wanted to add to the text. Right now we're going to stick with a multiple choice section. So the multiple choice section, it's going to look like this when I add my questions. But right here, what we're typing, we're not actually typing the questions here, we're typing the directions. So maybe something like choose the best answer. And this is what the students will see when they go into the section. And then I have some options here. I can make this a survey, which will show them a pie graph, or just kind of show them what their classmates are answering as well. You can randomize the questions. So if I had, let's say I added 10 questions to this section, if I click randomize, it's going to put them in a random order for each student. And then I could even set a question limit, so each student would only get 5 questions and they would get a random mix of them. I can also change the point value per question, so I could give them 2 points per question, however many points I wanted to. It is important to note that the point value per question can only be changed for an entire section at a time and not particular questions. So if you wanted to do an activity where the multiple choice questions were 1 point and then add a section that had long answer questions for more points, you would just have to create 2 separate sections for that, but they would be on the same activity. So I go ahead and I click Create Section. So now I have that section there. And then I would go ahead and click Add or Edit Questions. I'm going to create a new question, and I'm going to just ask a question, which is the best answer. I'm not getting super creative today with it, but, and then I would say, I'm just going to type best and not best. And then to tell the system which answer is correct, I just click on the X over here to mark that answer as the correct answer. and then I add that question. So now the students would be able to complete this activity and answer the questions there. So that's how you would add an activity, and then you would just click Save Page, close out of the editor, and hit Save one more time. And then you've actually added an activity to that chapter. So we added it to Chapter 1, Section 1. And we see it here. This is what I added. So we'll be able to go to that page, answer the question, and it will be automatically graded because I told the system to automatically grade it with that answer. So you can see that these are the directions that the directions that I typed in. This is the point value I set. That's the question, and that's the answer that I had marked as correct. And keep in mind you can do that in either French 1 or French 2, so you'll be able to do that in either title. Now, another important document that you're going to want to know where it is our scope and sequence document. So this will really give you a breakdown of exactly what's included in every chapter. So you would go again into the teacher's panel and go into that resource library. It's 3 books. And then from there, you do have a whole video library. So these are all of the videos that are in the title, just kind of in one place and sectioned out so that you can really very easily access videos. But you're going to want to actually go into the additional resources. And here's where you're going to have the scope and sequence, the user manual, the alignment to ACTFL, full outline, vocab list, and a review as well. So the scope and sequence we'll take a look at. The scope and sequence, like I said, is going to show you in each chapter what grammar and what vocabulary, as well as the culture and the phonetics, are in each chapter. So you'll be able to really get that quick breakdown. It's really helpful for lesson planning if you need to know exactly what's in which chapter without going through the entire chapter or the entire title. Again, we have that alignment to ACTFL, which is really helpful if you are trying to make sure that it aligns with those standards. You can see in each chapter and in each section which particular activities will go with these particular standards. So you'll be able to really match that up. And we do have it only for Chapter 1, but they will be the same elements that apply through every chapter. The titles of the activities will change, but you'll be able to apply this guide to every chapter. So then you do, like I said, have that vocabulary list, the full outline, and the review. This is also a great place to find different tutorial videos. So in your resource library, you'll have tutorial videos of how to create classes, assign pages, the gradebook, all kinds of really good tutorials. If you need to kind of see something in action, we've recorded those and left them there for you. So that is the basic makeup of our French 1 title. We're going to take a look at French 2 now as well. Now French 2 is built very, very similarly to French 1, so we'll see a lot of similarities here. So again, with French 2, we're going to have chapters, and then within those chapters, we're going to have the subchapters. You're always going to have that cover page and that overview of the chapter so that students and the teacher will know what to expect from that chapter. You'll see that it's organized quite the same way. You've got the vocabulary, the phonetics, the culture, and then we do have the structure of language, which is introduced, I believe, at the end of French 1, but that's what the SL stands for, is the structure of the language. So there will be lessons about that in French 2 as well. So you'll see that you still have that same, when you go into the vocabulary, you've got that great native speaker audio, you've got images, and you've got different information as you go through that vocabulary. You've got the phonetics and the speaking practice, just like you did in French 1. And again with French 2, we're going to have at the end of each sub-chapter, we're going to have the quiz, we're going to have that work summary, and the vocabulary list. We'll also have throughout in some chapters, we'll have the different, the evaluations of the communication. So these ones are going to be the interpretive and the communicative as well. And again, at the end of every chapter, so once you've gone through all of the subchapters, we do have the integrated performance assessment. So we've got that IPA with the context and the guiding questions, and then the different, the different levels of the interpretive and presentational, as well as that reflection or the can-do assessment. And then again, just like French 1, we've got that more traditional or vocabulary-based multiple choice exam here. So something else that is available in both titles is our Voces Game Center. So the Game Center is going to include some new games that we just added this summer. So if you've been familiar with the title in the past, you may recognize the Voces Roundup. You may recognize the green glow. So we'll kind of start there because it is glowing right now. So the Voces Roundup is a game that helps students practice their phrases, letters, and vocabulary. So when we go into that one, when it's lit up green, it means that we have a phrase, a letter, or a vocab term trapped in our trap. So we'll be able to go in there and correctly identify that particular term, which will give us a point, and we've collected that PLV now. So we go back to the Game Center, we can see the other games here, and we did have, again, in our assignment live stream, we talked a little bit more about these games. I just wanted to do a quick show of them in French as well. So then we do have the Voces match game. The match game is very similar to the concentration game that we had in the past, if you're familiar with that. We did update it, looks a little bit more modern, and now it will actually automatically pull from whatever chapter you're in. So if we go into a new single player game, we're going to use just the current chapter, and I'm going to check no audio for now, and we can choose how many cards we have, and then we'll be given the cards as well as the translations up here. So we'll be able to click on that and match those with the translations up at the top. And I'm trying to go through them kind of quickly, but I want to be able to show you what the end looks like. So once you're done matching all of them, you'll get a trivia question, and then you'll answer that question. I actually don't know the answer to this one. And then you'll see the answer to that, and you'll see how many attempts it took you. If you got any incorrect, you'll be able to see which ones you got incorrect as well. So that's the match game. As the teacher, you can actually create your own match sets. And you can also see the leaderboards and the results from the students. So then we do have the flashcard challenge, which again is going to be something that it can pull from the current chapter or all previous chapters. You can do the no audio option, and this game is just asking them to match flashcards either as quickly as they can or with perfection. So level 2 is just the 10 chapters. See, so chapter 1 is a little bit of review from French 1, but it kind of goes a little bit more in depth into some of those concepts and has a little bit more vocabulary, I believe. So you do have a little bit of review there, but then you're also touching on that structure of the language, so you're going a little bit further into it. All right. So I think that's a pretty good kind of overview of the structure and what's included in each title. The same with French 1, you can actually reach, you can see that scope and sequence here in the resource library under additional resources. You'll be able to go in there and see the different, what's included in each chapter. And what's included in each subchapter as well. So you'll be able to really see that breakdown, and again, can really help you with your lesson planning. So I'll give a couple minutes to see if anyone else has any questions, concerns, anything they want us to look at a little bit, a little bit more. We've got a few more minutes here, so we could take a little deeper look at anything you guys would like to. And don't forget, you can always sign up for that personalized walkthrough where we can answer any questions that you may have, give you a little bit deeper look at anything. And if you haven't signed up for a trial yet, we can get you set up with a free trial of Voces so you can try it out for yourself. And please, like I mentioned, check out some of our other videos about the Voces Editor, the assignment tool. We have some great ones coming up in the next couple weeks where we're going to be talking about the seal of biliteracy and talking a little bit about just kind of we're going to do a back to school kind of refresher course as well. So keep an eye out. That's on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. And if you miss any of them, feel free to check them out on our channel. They are recorded and are available almost immediately after we're done. So if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll be online for just a few more minutes here. So if anything comes up, please do put it in the chat and we'd be happy to answer it.